It actually going to cost me. It would cost me nearly $500 just to get the cans, if
Yeah.
unless I fly, and I don't want to fly. Um, I would like to. I would like to go on
Yeah.
mass transit, but it's about $150 to get to Sydney, and it's about
Mm-hmm.
$150 to get to Brisbane, and then it's almost $200 to get from Brisbane to
Mm.
Cairns. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Hello, early birds. We're just getting organised. I have to get my Twitter notifications up so that I have everything we want to talk about. Da, da, da. So you might have to fill time, Holly, while I find uh, all those tweets.
Sure.
People were quite vocal about it yesterday, and also I was provocative because I said someone said wild pea fowl, and I said, "What, you mean wild, or do you mean
Mm.
escapees or something?" I wanted
Mm.
people to.
Mm. Think
Here
about.
we go. Yeah. Well, I wanted people to get grumpy about it. So
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about it. Maybe I just was
okay.
not
So that's
online enough.
so that one's there. Okay. And what was the other one? So we've got the P foul, and then the kookaburras. That's
In
right.
Kookaburra. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start. We'll start with the P foul, and then we'll go because the kookaburras further down my list. Oh, and I also
Okay.
want to show. Oh, here we are, and here's all the. Did you know that the in Launceston around the gorge, the council actually
Oh, hang
owns.
on. I've lost sound.
Oh, oh!
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
There you go. You're back.
There we go. I'm back. So something going on there. Yeah, I could hear you that whole time.
Okay.
Um, okay. What I was just going to say, did you know that in Launceston, around the gorge, so around Lerdergerd
Mm.
Gorge, no, is it
Mm.
not Lerdergerd? What's it called? The one where the Cascade Brewery is.
Mm.
The council owns and promotes the presence of their peafowl breeding, and it's a tourist attraction.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's
Cataract Gorge.
yeah, cataract. That's right, not Lerderderg. Yeah. Okay, so
That's
that's
really
that,
interesting.
and we'll find. I'll find the. If
That's,
I
yeah, the website's fun. Like, yeah. Shady North of the Gorge is abundant with wildlife and is home to peacocks as their first listed wildlife,
yeah,
wallabies, pademelons, and much more. That's really
and
interesting.
yeah, and there we go. And Gerg, who is one of my regular correspondents on Twitter. Don't know whether there mightn't be some breeding happening in a few suburbs, technically wild. So anyway, we'll go through all of that.
Mm.
Yeah, cool. And what else is going on in Hollyverse?
Ah, um, lots. Yeah, we're just I'm working on a kicking off another gang project that will have an honours student on it. So we're about to working with Mick Callan
Oh,
and
good,
Habitek,
good, good,
um,
good, good. So
and we're going to be working with the council in Sydney and trialing some supplementary hollow techniques for gang cockatoos, which will be very interesting.
that
I'm
will
a little bit
be.
excited.
You need to do that in Canberra too, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, Canberra, there's trials going on with cockatoos in Canberra and on the south coast of New South Wales. But this is a couple of slightly different trials. So we got some funding from the New South Wales Twitchathon last year to do the work, and so we're partnering with Campbelltown Council and going to be getting those up hopefully next month, and then we'll have our student on board halfway through the year to actually do the hard yards field work and analyse all the data loggers and camera traps and things. It's going to be good.
Cool.
But there's just a bit of work to do to get that started, but it'll be fun.
Okay, there goes the tweet.
Okay.
There goes the tweet. So
Oh,
I was working on a theme with a little tune and a video for us, Holly, but I didn't get
really?
it finished. Didn't get it
That's
finished yet, but some of our greatest hits in the in the video. But I'm working on that. So
okay.
Oh, and should we do our housekeeping before we actually get started?
Okay.
Now, I've got Bruce Richardson booked in for the 10th because that's Easter Monday. So I thought you wouldn't be available. Do you want to do the 3rd or the 17th? The 3rd's next week.
Yep, I can't do the 3rd. I've got a meeting in.
Okay.
And I can't do the 17th because I'm on leave.
Okay,
I can do the 24th.
You can do the 24th? Okay. So,
yeah. Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
School holidays.
That's cool. I just changed the magnet. I've got a different coloured green for Holly than I do for me. So,
all right.
Holy moly, that'll be 3 weeks of me in a row. Wow.
Sorry, I've just got to do the childcare split.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Otherwise, she could co-host as well, but that could be messy.
I wouldn't have a drama with that, I reckon.
She'd love it. She rates herself as a bird watcher.
We go all ages and yeah. Oh, did you see the post I put up of the magpies fighting today?
No, I haven't been on today.
I will.
Barely been on socials.
I will drag that up.
Okay.
As well.
Cool.
As we get going.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
let's share to the group. So let me just share to the Facebook group. I looked at that video that you sent through on StreamYard, which looks really good. I just have to set up an account.
Yeah. You just do a free account and and then you can add any of your destinations up to I think 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then so you could actually stream to the Facebook group.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's a really good functionality they've brought in. So, speaking of Facebook, hello Facebook, welcome YouTube. No Twitches yet, which I always find weird that we haven't got a huge bird watching community on Twitch. Lot of interest, which was good, Holly, on. For our second bird watching deep dive with Ricky.
Great.
Which was, we did thornbills last week. The previous fortnight was scrub wrens. After Easter, we're going to be doing, I think either on the 21st or maybe the fortnight after, we're going to actually do setting up binoculars because
cool.
I've ordered a new pair of binoculars, and apparently there's a slight delay. There must be a, like everything. So
shortage somewhere. What'd you get?
I just got the Nikon. So I wanted to get a budget. Yeah, I just wanted to get sort of a reasonable budget pair, and then we're going to go through setting them up. So I'm not going to do anything to them until Ricky and I sort of walk through doing it.
It'll be an unboxing video. That's cool.
Well, pretty much. And actually, depending on what happens with whether I'm going to be ground crew with Millie, I might do it. Hiya, Stan. Happy Monday. Holly, how groovy are you? Do you remember the Happy Mondays?
I don't think I'm that groovy, obviously.
Oh,
But
well, look.
it's ringing a little faint bell somewhere in the depths of my brain.
Well, let let's just have a bit of just a little bit of fun
Okay.
while before we get going. This will. Oh no, it'll get me. It'll probably get. I better stop it. It'll get me.
Licensing?
Yeah, definitely. I
Uh
forgot
huh.
about that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
I'll go away and Google it.
Sean Ryder from the Happy Mondays. I used to love the Happy Mondays.
Happy Mondays.
Stan, do you remember the Happy Mondays by any chance? Oh,
80 to 93. Oh, they had a later career too. I probably will
yeah.
know songs, but I'm not.
Yep.
I was too busy listening to New Kids on the Block.
Well, funnily enough, Stan's just said, "What about Blue Monday by New Order?" Yeah, well,
Nice.
New Order was very much dance floor stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, New Order is what sprang from the ashes of, oh, what am I blanking on? Ian Curtis's Joy Division,
Okay.
but yeah, the Happy Mondays were very much Manchester dance,
Yep.
Stone Roses, but they were total acid
Okay.
tripper slackers. And
All right.
Sean Ryder, one of the great urban poets of that era. All right, time to get our A into G. Time to get our A into G, which means I get to do this. G'day, bird nerds. It's Monday, and it's my favourite kind of Monday for two reasons today. One is that I get joined. We get to talk birds and just hang out and catch up with Dr. Holly Parsons. Hang on, I got to do the right one. With Dr. Holly Parsons, the Urban Birds Program Manager with Birdlife Australia. Hi, Holly.
Hello. Hi. What's reason number 2?
The koalas won the New South Wales state election.
Indeed.
The koala killers have been kicked to the curb.
Well and truly.
And the reason I'm so pumped about that, and actually let me just temper my enthusiasm a little bit, because they haven't gazetted or proclaimed the Great Australian Koala National Park yet. When they do it, I will be leaping for joy. And the reason for that is, Holly, because if you protect koalas, what else do you do?
Well, there is a whole range of other wildlife that also love the same habitat that koalas love. So, using an icon species can hopefully have great benefit for a huge umbrella group of birds and other wildlife too.
And let me give a shout out, I reckon, to the greatest conservation warrior in the last, I want to say 3 years in New South Wales, Friendly Geordies. Nobody has done as much to highlight what's been going on with the ridiculous state of play with state government logging and forestry operations in Australia as that dude. And he might be a cheeky little bastard and he might get up some people's noses, but credit where credit is due. Nobody has put themselves on the line like Jordan Shanks has. I mean, they even firebombed his bloody house twice. The first time they missed his place, got his neighbours, and the second time they got him. That's what's called doing your best for something you care about. So shout out to you, Jordan. Plus, I love your sark and snark, even if even if you are a bit mean sometimes. So follow Friendly Geordies on YouTube and you'll have a giggle. You may well get mad and want to shout at him too, but that's what it's about, provoking thought. Holly, Holly, Holly. Holly, Holly, Holly.
Yes.
Let's talk about a couple of issues before we get into our main subject. Oh, and we'll just
Okay.
say, and let's just follow up too. Stan on Kangaroo Island. Hello, Stan. Happy Monday. We were talking about the Happy Mondays and whatnot. Stan remembers the Happy Mondays, so there we are. So he'll know what I'm talking about when I say kinky afro. And again, Stan's comments are coming in thick and fast. Yeah, Geordies. Yeah. Actually, I'll just say something else, which is really on my mind a bit, and it's sort of about the state election result in New South Wales. We had to reschedule the show with Ricky because Ricky spent a day talking about trans women's rights, and we've had that full Posey, whatever her name is. She's
don't even. Yeah.
But bundled out of out of New Zealand without being able to speak. You know, we're pretty tolerant country for difference in a lot of ways here. We've got a lot of problems that we need to deal with, historical injustices without a doubt, but we're not on board with all this other rubbish. But how is it that the alternative party of government in New South Wales now finds someone like Matt Keane too radical and too far to the left to contemplate being their leader? My goodness, what has happened to Conservatives in this country? Wake up to yourselves, bullfeds. Anyway, let's talk about PFAL to start with, Holly.
Why not?
Let's. Where did I find that one? I'm trying to find the. Where is it? I had it just a minute ago. No, that's. Oh, here we go. No, sorry everyone. Here we go. Here's the thread. Here's the thread. So let's go through the thread. Right, I'll share this one. Share this tab instead. Oh, my mouse
Where is it?
stuck. My mouse
There
was
it is.
stuck.
Here it comes.
There it is. There
Hey.
it is. So, I just made a comment here. Some residents of Barden didn't know the peacocks and peahens were a problem until they discovered they had been taken away. Some wild Brisbane peafowls captured on council orders, dividing a suburb. And of course, I said wild as in escaped, and I wanted to be deliberately provocative. Words mean things, right? So, wild Brisbane peafowls captured on council orders, dividing a suburb. And of course, Gerg does a lot of good work on Twitter. Don't know whether there mightn't be some breeding happening in a few suburbs. Technically wild. So that wanted, and then people were coming in with all sorts of words. Feral, wild, escaped, invasives. What? How would you categorise that population if they're breeding in the wild, Holly?
Oh, goodness. It's a really interesting one to work out where the line is drawn between escaped birds and when they become considered wild. And then wild in an urban context is probably very different to wild in a bushland natural habitat context. I would probably stick to the term introduced rather than any of those,
Yeah.
because I think it takes out some of the connotations that some of those other words can have. They are, if you know, it wouldn't surprise me to have a self functioning, I guess you could say, population um, in some of these areas. It would be interesting to know how well supported they are by people, whether people are putting food out for them or whether they're just able to move through the urban landscape and sort of find their own somewhat natural food. But I think anytime you have any of these species that are able to sustain themselves, in a somewhat wild setting, you've got the potential to harm the natural population of birds or other wildlife. That's a lot of peafowl. That's a lot of um, insects, seed, probably all sorts of bits and pieces that they are eating. That means native birds don't have access to that food. So there's potential for them to be a bit of a problem. But
Yeah.
people have such a long history and such a love of them because they look pretty that I can see the where there may be community pushback against that, because people value pretty things, and that's why we get things like community cats, people wanting to help and support cats in strays and feeding up populations, is because they see these animals and don't want them to struggle. But that's not addressing the root issue at all.
Yeah, and especially um, if you're doing one, uh, like if you're allowing one kind of bird,
Mm-hmm.
then how do you be consistent with something like mallards in ornamental ponds, which
Mm-hmm.
then uh, are a, a, a threat
Yep.
to any other native duck in the Anas genus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
it's why in so many countries they can't really even identify what
Yes.
their indigenous duck is anymore.
Yep.
Um,
It's
how,
a really tricky one, because you can see you've got sort of people's values tied up in the species themselves. You've got the potential cost of removal versus potential harm. But if you leave removal too late, then potentially you've got a significant ecological problem, rather than dealing with that issue before it emerges. And you're right, Grant. When you're in an urban setting, you've got habitats that are so far removed from natural, um, that you do have these sort of interactions with visible members of the bird community that maybe couldn't survive in natural environments, or um, don't need to, because they're sort of supported by people, by putting food out and feeding the ducks and things as well. I can see Canberra has also had problems with peafowl too, and have introduced some attempts to control, because they're concerned that they're going to be moving outside of sort of urban areas.
where I grew up as a kid, I lived in 3 or 4 houses in this town, but the first one where I grew up was maybe 2, 3 kilometres
Mm-hmm.
from a farmhouse and a big ornamental dam, which was covered in lily pads and whatnot. And that farmer had peafowl,
Mm-hmm.
and they were so loud, and we
Yeah.
were kilometres away. I can't imagine having them
Mm-hmm.
strutting around nearby, and there's sort of nothing. Well, from my point of view, there's nothing to love about that squawk. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
It's also interesting, sorry, Grant, that it's weighing up to, the cost of controlling them before they become a problem, but also thinking about the bigger picture too. And, while there may be some PFAL running around and there's complaints, and that's absolutely justified, but bigger picture, we still need to have that focus on, urbanization and removal of trees and removal of habitat as well. So I can understand needing to deal with the PFAL issue, but while people are so up in arms about protecting the PFAL, they're forgetting about the really serious issues of tree loss, of domestic cats, of foxes, of all of those other big picture issues that urban landscapes are facing.
Let me say something slightly controversial there, Holly, and it's consistent with what I bang on about all the time, and it's why I'm often critical about our science/conservation communicators. Without being critical of anyone in particular, but it's this whole thing about, you're relying on money from donor world. Everyone's always being nice. How is it that the community gets educated that something like PFAL are nice and we value them? As Martin has just pointed out in the comments, PFAL are regularly recorded in eBird in Rare Bird Alert, right, for Australia. But we don't have an understanding of the damage that feral species are doing. We don't have a clear understanding about habitat loss. We don't have a clear understanding within the community. In general, I'm talking about, David Normie, as I was talking about with Ricky, the people who you're standing next to it the next time you go to a barbecue. They'll go, oh, isn't it nice? I saw a peafowl. I saw a peacock at the park.
Societal values, Grant, are just such a difficult thing to overcome. I'm not saying it's not something.
No. I'm sorry. I'm going to disagree with you.
Okay.
We've conceded the space because no one wants to be anything but polite and nice. No one is confrontational in these discussions. And
if you're trying to change societal values, though, often being confrontational doesn't work. It's around appropriate education. I can understand there are time frames and there are issues, but if you want to genuinely change people's minds, I think you need I don't want to say gentler approach, but maybe a friendlier approach, because people being told that they are wrong and they are doing wrong puts them immediately on the back foot.
No, but see, that's where the skill in being communicative comes in.
Which is why you phrase it as an education, not a berating.
No, that's right. I'm not advocating berating people. But you don't get on any of the avenues to get communicating to mass audiences without having a hook. And sometimes it's not I was really critical of the stories that I'm not going to name her, but I've just finished reading her book. But on Channel 7, when they were talking about the ibises in Brisbane who had moved in to nest next to the motorway, and the problem and the way it was discussed was that there's all these ibis near the motorway and they're big birds and they damage cars. Nowhere was the expert expert talking about, no, the problem is actually there's nowhere for them to live.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity to do that. Every time they have one of these discussions where they talk about conservation and they go to the sanctuary or the wildlife park and someone's cuddling a koala, they always talk about, it's great, you can come and see a koala. They never, ever inject into the discussion. And the reason why you need to come here to see the koalas is that we're knocking down everywhere they bloody live. And if that is just injected into every conversation consistently, then it becomes a point that people understand, but they never do it. They never do
Oh,
it.
no, actually, I will disagree with you. I don't think it's that they never do it. I think it actually happens, and I think it's happening a lot more. It might just be that you're not seeing it in those snippets of information. But if you go to particularly a lot of the zoos now, if you want to go down that track, they have their messaging in their exhibits around
Yep, yep.
those
But
sort of
that,
issues. So they do
but
tie it in really closely with
but no, no, no. But
action.
that's one step away.
Yes.
So
So
and
you're talking
so
about general media. That
so
is a,
yes,
yeah.
yes. That's my problem. When you're getting to 4 million people in the morning
Yeah.
on Sunrise or the Today Show,
Mm.
they don't do it. When you're getting to the audience that is already tuned in, they're talking about it. That's my problem with the way it's being done. Now, whether my way would work, I don't know, but it's not being done to test it. That's my.
As someone who has done those things before, you do not always get the opportunity. It is
Yeah.
a really difficult space, and it is a really difficult. It's a really difficult place to get your message across. You can do it. I've done it. Maybe I haven't done it particularly well, but I've done it. But you don't get those opportunities very often because, they might have their go-to. They may not
Well,
just want to cover those topics
that
and actually
yeah,
convincing
that-
them because
but
you're
that's
the one that gets the call, not the I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
It's always a reactionary.
no, that's right,
Yeah.
and that's part of the problem is that the
Yeah.
go-to is not you, right? The go-to is the biologist for hire.
Yeah.
So my problem is with the fact that biologist for hire is bloody well sold out, right? That's
I don't
my
know if
problem.
you're talking about anyone in particular here or anything.
Oh,
but
I am about the one that I've consistently seen doing this, but there's more as well. But that's where sometimes you're. I don't know. Look, I don't know. I'm probably being way too nasty. Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry. I wouldn't name the person just because it's not fair to have a pile on. They're making a career their way and whatnot. But I just, I certainly wouldn't want to see them lining up somewhere else.
Okay.
Getting
all right.
getting cred for being a warrior for wildlife. If you know what I mean. I mean that's all my point is. I know it's difficult. I mean, God, Sunrise would never have me sitting next to Coshy. Someone said on my Twitter the other day, hello Natalie, by the way, thanks very much for wondering why I'm not on network TV. This is why I'm not on network TV, right? Because 95% of it is bullshit, as Stormy has sort of alluded to. They can't push things that might be going against their main advertisers. Yeah. That's why you don't see anyone promoting palm oil-free products because, oh my God, Nestle. And, oh, my God, palm olive, right? I mean, that's why we have to work twice as hard when we're not in that space.
It is hard. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess just speaking from, my little field, we try, absolutely.
Oh.
And certainly from a Birdlife perspective, our profile has been raised a lot in recent years, and I think that's down to a lot of things like the Aussie bird count, because that's been able to get us to reach a lot of people through a really positive, fun activity. And so it's around sort of crafting that way to bring birds to people, so then when they're engaged and keen, you can talk about some of those really hard issues. Certainly it's on our agenda to keep doing that and to do it more, both in my team and generally in the org. One of the projects I'm most proud about is our Birds in Schools project, because that is around teaching kids, when they're young, about the value of birds and connecting them to the birds in their space. So, we know research wise, kids love birds when they're little. They drift away from a lot of this sort of stuff through their teenage years and through, into their 20s, and then they come back around. And so it's about making sure we can get in at that early stage to hopefully keep things going, or if they get distracted by hormones and school and early career, they come back as well. So it's a really challenging thing is to get into that mainstream and make a difference, and it's hard work.
And it's one of the reasons why I absolutely love what Millie's doing.
Yes.
Wing threads, flight around Australia for shorebirds, because she's going to school. She's already been to 66.
Yeah.
She's going to at least 45 more.
Yeah.
Maybe heaps more. And she's not only getting to the kids, and I remember my sort of introduction to wildlife was, one, I had uncles who were involved in it. One of my uncles was big in the Gould League when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my teachers, when I was in grade 3 and 4, we used to have hot days. We lived near the beach. Mm-hmm. On a hot day in a classroom with no air conditioning, he'd take the whole school. And admittedly, when I started, there were 32 kids at the school. When I finished, there was about 100. Mm-hmm. But we would go to the beach. We would go walking through the scrub, and he would point out lizards and limpets and stuff like that. That's undoubtedly where I got my appreciation for the bush and for the wild. Birds was more a family thing, but nature in general definitely came from that. So, I said this to Millie the other day when we were talking. Just imagine the impact that Millie's going to have over 30 years, having done this one journey. I mean, it's
such a unique opportunity for the kids that sticks with them. Absolutely. And it's such an amazing adventure that she's having, that for those kids to be a part of that is really special.
And think of all those kids and the teachers who will know what a curlew is, who will know what a sanderling is, who will know what a stint is. And then, of course, they're going to learn about spoonbill sandpipers, and they're going to get interested in the flyway, and so it's so valuable. And look, I don't mean to be. I certainly mean to be provocative, and I want to prod people to do stuff. But I never blame someone like you, Holly, because Sunrise isn't ringing you up, right?
No.
Right. What they're going to do is ring up someone tame. That's what they do in my view. So anyway, we're going to talk about one of the other subjects that came up in discussion, and again, good old Twitter. This was a story I saw on Twitter, but this got a lot of people up in arms, and plenty of comment from all over the country. Let me just...
Here we go.
Let me get this one up. Now this one... Now it's really good when you read the different ones and who's
the headlines. Yeah.
So this is from an account with the Eureka flag as its icon. This even made news in New York. Launceston man shoots 350 kookaburras in rural Tasmania. Fined $5,000 for wrong firearm license. FFS for sake. Right? Here's another one. The Daily Mail. Farmer shoots dead 350 kookaburras after they invaded his rural property. Another one, basically the same take. And then we've got all the people, and this is why it was controversial for me. This is so vile and wrong. Man shoots 350 kookaburras on his property, and it's legal. Man culls 350 kookaburras with silenced rifle because they were impacting native wildlife. Now, he got fined because of the kind of rifle he was using, right?
Yeah.
Not for shooting the kookaburras. So much discussion about this, Holly.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about kookaburras in Tasmania.
Yes. They are not native to Tassie, or at least they haven't been for a very long time, since Tassie would have been joined to the mainland. So it means that I believe in Tas they're declared a pest species, which means that they can be culled. And I think that is a really, really difficult concept for a lot of people to grasp, because they're a native bird. They're our iconic, like they are the Australian bird. Really, if you ask sort of general population, that's the bird that they would probably identify easiest. So it is really hard to understand why, in some cases, culling might be necessary. Not to say I don't know the particular situation here to know, but if he's got 350 kookaburras on his property,
It's a lot of kookaburras.
that's a lot of kookaburras for a species that is territorial, and generally occurs in sort of small family groups. That's a lot of birds.
So that means
in a
every
single space.
time he takes a group out, another one moves straight
another
in.
group's coming in. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, Holly, we probably do not have the research about how many small birds a group of kookaburras kills, but I would reckon a family of kookaburras in a place where they should not be is probably a bit equivalent of 5 or 6 cats. So
Quite possibly. It's hard to know.
I mean, we don't know exactly, but I reckon that would be probably a pretty good guess.
Yeah. Yeah. But what we do know is that you are introducing a carnivorous top order predator into a space that it hasn't occupied before. Same as Southwest WA as well.
Yep.
Where it's introduced there as well. Was brought into WA, I think, to control snakes. And we all know how well it goes when you bring in something introduced into an area to control something else. Always works really well. So, when you're bringing a top order predator in that eats a lot of other things, that is then going to compete with the other predatory species for that food. These birds are also, then you throw into the mix that they're a hollow nesting species. So they're going to be competing for hollows amongst the other hollow nesting birds and other wildlife. You've got a really good competitor that is going to disrupt the ecosystem. And that's what seems to be happening.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to remove that for a minute. Got 2 pieces of news I've just had a look at. The government and the Greens have come to an an agreement over the safeguard mechanism. There still will be new coal and gas, but it is now unlimited, not unlimited in the offsets. There is now a ceiling. Okay, so it's limited about what new development can take place. So there's not much details yet, but that's just come out. The other one is that the Victorian Liberal Party didn't expel Moira Deeming about being a transphobe. They've suspended her for 6 months. They're so brave.
Oh,
they're so brave. Good on them. All right, that's enough of that. Holly, I know you wanted to talk about some research and some new some developments with someone. I'm going to tell people that they should be following someone on Twitter.
Who are we following on Twitter?
Here we are.
Carly.
Dr. Carly Campbell. I am horrified. 113 followers. Now, bird nerds, I insist that you go to @echo_Carly, ECO_Carly, and follow her now. Okay? Lovely profile photo up there, or banner, featuring noisy miners hassling a kookaburra.
Yep.
So that's great. Carly's a quantitative ecologist and conservation scientist, and she's done a lot of work with friend of the show, friend of yours, Holly, Daryl Jones,
Yes.
about urban birds in Brisbane.
That's right.
She's put out. Where's the latest publication? Here we go. Let's share that tab. Biological conservation, big changes in backyard birds, an analysis of long-term changes in bird communities in Australia's populous urban regions, co-authored with Daryl.
Yes.
What do you want to talk about, Holly?
Oh, I think it's a really, really interesting paper, and I'd suggest everybody take a look at it. It's freely available, so it's not one behind a paywall, which is fantastic. So Carly Campbell has just submitted her PhD a few months ago, so she's just waiting for all the results to come back from that work. But she did some really, really interesting research overall. We probably should get her on. It's my fault for not being organised this time around.
I asked her last time. I asked her. She was writing up the PhD.
She was writing up. She has submitted.
Yeah. So she was busy.
Yeah, so Carly's PhD focused on how bird communities have changed in key urban areas of Australia. So she looked at Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. And so this is kind of the biggest publication so far that's come out on her work. Co-authored or co-supervised as well by Monica Owasti, who used to be my other half on the Urban Bird Program. She and I were sort of co-managers. And so Monica was one of her supervisors. Basically, the research has looked at all the historical data out there from our Birds in Backyard surveys, other Birdlife Australia surveys, eBird, to document how bird communities have shifted in these cities over the past 50 or 60 years. So she's been able to look at some really good historical data to document the way bird communities have changed. And so, interestingly enough, we've seen species like the kookaburra in a couple of key cities actually showing a decline. So you get these increases in places like Tassie where they're becoming a problem. Yet Brisbane and Melbourne in particular have seen quite dramatic shifts and declines of kookaburra populations. So
no kangaroos. No kangaroos. There are no
kangaroos recorded in this survey. It's really interesting. That was a really interesting discovery.
Yes, there are no kangaroos in my local park, but I also don't have kookaburras near me. So
yeah, and so it that follows with some other work, some other analysis of BirdLife Australia data, and even Aussie backyard bird count data that had showed a similar sort of decline for things like kookaburras. So it's really interesting to see that shift, that they're doing really well in some places, but in their natural range, they're sort of starting to struggle. And so that brings in ideas of, what is driving that decline? Is it loss of hollow-bearing trees? Is it the opening up of the landscape? Tassie is still very, very densely covered and possibly drying out a bit into more of a sort of a woodland area environment in a lot of places. So that could be why kookaburras are doing particularly well there as well. But there's a whole range of species that are changing in different cities. What she also documented was that they're becoming a lot more homogenized. So we're getting really similar, particularly dominant urban birds in each city. Which is really sad. We're losing our individual identity in our urban bird communities to become much more sort of standard.
Some of the really interesting things that were brought out in that paper and in some of the discussions that have sprung because of it, a lot of the things that we've talked about already on the show, like the availability of hollows being one, but then the vegetation density, which is different to the vegetation mix.
Yes.
And then sort of I don't know if I'm using the right term, but then there's the fragmentation of habitat, remnant habitat and new habitat, which is really that sort of the spatial relationships between the built environment and where people live and recreate and work, which is like that land use mix in different suburbs,
Yes.
which is why, for instance, I think there's a greater variety of native birds in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne and probably, well, I don't know Sydney well enough to say, to generalise whether the northeast of Sydney might have a greater variety of species, but it would
Yes.
be my guess than
Yep.
the
Very
west,
true.
inner west and middle west of Sydney. So it's really complicated
It is.
about how to make positive changes because, as we've said so many times, and certainly with heaps of guests, once you've buggered up an environment, you can't just fix it with what used to be there, because once you've changed it, different species might have a competitive advantage no matter
Yes.
what you try and pop back there. So it's just hard. I'm really
Yeah.
glad that this research has been happening because
Yes.
it certainly didn't happen in the 70s and 80s
No.
and 90s. So then people were making ill-informed statements like I always did, Holly, about which birds are becoming more common. And I think we all notice what's disappearing, but it's nice to be able to say, whether they're positive changes or not, but it's nice to know what is becoming.
Yeah, we need to be
more
able to
common.
provide the evidence, because
That's
if we're
right.
going to make a change, if we need to know what the state of play is, we need to know what that baseline is that we're working with now, so we can better plan for how we're going to do things differently, hopefully, in the future. And you're right, Grant, it's around that connectivity. We can put lots and lots of plants in our gardens and change individually what we're doing at a garden level. But if bushland patches are getting removed or degraded, or you've got sort of serious cat problems in a suburb, then that's only going to go so far. There's a whole holistic way we need to look at how to, I guess, maybe maximize bird diversity in our urban areas is what we need to be going for, because we can't get back to a natural bird community in our urban spaces. That's just not possible. But you can certainly aim to get a range of different species in there, and sort of decrease that homogenization of just a few really, really hyper abundant guys and nothing else.
And Holly, as you can see, I've got my horticulture hat on. It's impossible to separate a discussion of bird diversity from vegetation diversity and the planning of the vegetation, and link to that hard landscape. So it's there is no easy solution. And it's another reason why I sometimes get grumpy when I see there's a $3,000 grant for something, and it really needs to be $100,000 grant that is the entirety, the great scope of the treatment, the design, the treatment, the implementation, and then the monitoring. And we rarely ever, I mean, none of the funding bodies seem to have that available. And that's part of the reason why we just need to always be banging on to government about doing things properly.
Yeah. Story of my life, Grant. It's
No, that's right.
such a complex place to work. And I think it can sometimes probably be seen as a really easy place because you don't have to go anywhere. You just pop outside. But it's hard work, and there's not a lot of funding around, especially not for that baseline monitoring stuff that just isn't sexy enough, I think, a lot of the times. But it's so crucial.
And dear listener, dear watcher, dear viewer, dear participant. Oh, hello, Riot Squad too. I can see more than usual here, so that's great. The responsibility is not only on Holly and Sean Dooley and everyone else that you know in the space. the responsibility is yours as well. If you care, you need to pressure your council, your state government, your federal government, anybody you think has some influence. Because if you don't shut up about it, people will start to take notice. Be nicer than I am. I will certainly take that on board. I'm far more likely to be far from friendly to a lot of people if I think they're, dragging their heels, because most of them I think are probably dragging their knuckles as well when it comes to environmental issues. But once you can, I don't think you need to convince everyone. I think you just need to make everyone not just aware of the problem, but aware of the complexity and the possible solutions. Then you can get something happening. I mean, I don't know.
And I think too, controversially, not everybody loves birds.
That's right.
But a healthy bird community and a healthy urban environment is tied into our health as well. And so sometimes it might not be birds that are the argument that you use. It is around how increasing canopy cover is going to make cooler spaces for us, which is going to decrease, threats of heat stroke and other issues during a heat wave. How having access to a lovely public park to exercise in is going to give physical benefits as well as mental health benefits for people. And so how we don't always necessarily have to use birds. We want birds to have a good outcome. And from my perspective, I'm always looking at, how to tie in that work with what is going to be good for birds as the ultimate outcome. But, we can afford to be a bit selfish too and sell this stuff on the basis that it benefits us as well. For sure.
No doubt. No doubt. I just want to pop up another one of Carly's tweets, which...
I love this one.
Yeah.
This made me very happy.
So, and this is only from March 7, after much shrub planting in what was a very dry and sparse garden when we got it, we're finally seeing some tiny visitors. My goal has been to welcome small birds like these superb fairy wrens to the garden, so I'm celebrating this little 10 to 14 centimetres victory. Hashtag urban biodiversity, which is one of my favourite hashtags. So no matter where you live, you can make a difference by doing some planting.
Absolutely.
I should note, Stan, who's part of the Riot Squad in the chat, Stan and I will be doing next month a deep dive about his garden. So I've got some suggestions about what he can add to his garden on Kangaroo Island. And then hopefully with his channel and my channel, we'll be talking about it, how it goes, what comes in. We have to get a yard list going, I guess. But Holly, you've got a question there.
I do. So, would leaving some native habitat and veg in developments instead of total clearing make a difference? Absolutely. And in some cases, there is veg that gets left, but it's not enough. Yeah. So, a lot of the time, there are certain criteria. It could be just like the big tree with hollows or something gets to leave, but everything else goes, which means...
Or the big tree with hollows gets removed because it's a danger. But... Yeah. Martin, I might just prod Holly a bit on that because it's totally in line with what we've been talking about. If you've got development A, which is here, and they leave the tiny little bit of land here, and development B is over here, and they've left their tiny little bit of land, which is, where are we? Over here. How do wrens and thornbills from here get over here? And that's where this fragmentation, disjointed, lack of corridors, lack of canopy cover for birds that use canopies to get easily from one bit to another. Because imagine you're a group of honey eaters and you've got to get 300 metres to the next lot of canopies. There's probably a hobby or a falcon or a sparrowhawk going, oh, it just becomes the local McDonald's, you know. So,
exactly.
And of course, once those birds are eradicated, the prey birds, they're gone. They're not coming back because it's not suitable, which is why where I live, there's only a handful of honey eaters. There's no wrens. I haven't seen thornbills here for years. I don't hear pardalotes. I've got a couple of species of honey eaters. I've got wattlebirds, but I don't even have little wattlebirds where I live. I have to go round to some densely planted gardens to find little wattlebirds.
Yeah.
So the answer's pretty clear. And it's the same whether we're talking about forests or whether we're talking about new housing developments, or even when you've traded up from your small unit and you've bought a place with an established garden. Stop cutting shit down. It really is that simple at the beginning. Then you've got to manage what you have. So you might take away some species and replace them to make it more difficult for pests or feral birds or whatever. But
starting from scratch is usually the worst thing you can do, is clearing everything out, even in a little garden. Absolutely. Totally agree. And that connectivity is critical. So I've actually got an honours student starting now at Sydney Uni. Genevieve is going to be looking at some of those questions. So using fairy wrens to work out what local features need to be in the environment to support the population, but what landscape level features need to be there as well. So how connected do spaces need to be in order to support these populations, which is really basic and really critical work that we need to have done so we can then understand how to design these spaces better and how to plan better to basically backfill, you know, all the damage that's been done. So, hopefully by the end of the year we'll have a bit of some results on that.
Hopefully. Leanne, welcome. First time I've seen Leanne in the chat. Now, Leanne, now that you've left such a wise and detailed comment.
Yeah, beautiful.
You are welcome as part of the Riot Squad. Holly, why do we call them the Riot Squad?
Because we want them to make some noise.
Well, that's one reason. That's one reason. Holly, you've forgotten. What's the collective noun for kookaburras? What's the collective noun for
Oh, that's right. It's a collective name for kookaburras. I forgot.
It's the Riot. So you're
I'm
in the
not
Riot
feeling
squad.
very righteous today, obviously.
Now let me just read this for the podcast listeners. Everyone else can see it. Leanne said, "I believe it's so important to teach children early to love birds, to love all our Australian native fauna and flora as well. And we also need to teach them that we can't have one without the other. Fauna needs flora and flora needs fauna," which is dead set correct. Mm-hmm. Give the little people in your life a pair of binoculars, a bird bath, and a lovely book on birds. Most important, a field guide, and watch them start to notice the birds in their backyard, park, school grounds, and ask some questions to start helping. Now, I'm also going to say, if they're involved in social media, which nearly all of them are, get them to get involved in First Seen and Heard or the Dawn Chorus, because it helps them get active and attentive, and maybe they'll get involved and they'll get to know some other kids who are bird nerds, and that's really important. A sense of community. Introduce them to people like Spencer with Save Sunrise Glossies.
Yeah.
What Maya Rose Craig in the UK is doing. There are kids making significant differences. I mean, no kid needs a better role model than Greta Thunberg. There are... So, yes, get them a field guide, get them some binoculars. I reckon should be almost the first present for any kid who starts drawing bugs and, not a bug catcher, but a set of binoculars. Stan's been out doing interviews, so he didn't even hear what I was saying about him before. Luckily, he didn't hear what I was saying about him, right, Holly? Yeah. So, come up with some more questions and comments, folks, while we explore some of the other issues. Holly, tell us what the quantitative numbers have let us know. We're talking about the issues, but what are we finding about those common birds? Oh, I got very excited the other day, Holly, because I saw a willy wagtail at my place.
Nice.
Now, I haven't seen a willy wagtail for quite some time. So I saw that as being encouraging. But then I thought about it more, and I thought, I wonder if that willy wagtail lived somewhere in one of the places where, every time a block of land here gets sold and a 30-year-old house gets knocked down and all the shrubbery gets pulled out. And, of course, that might have been the willy wagtail's home. So now it's on the lookout for somewhere else. So I was kind of happy as well as sad. That was my... Oh, and the pair of Australian hobbies I saw again. And, of course, someone told me, you can't be seeing Australian hobbies where you are. The same as someone's been telling me I can't see... what was that out there? Wasn't it my place? You're not even attuned to your normal birds, are you? I don't know which one it was.
I probably shouldn't be able to hear mine too much. I think I heard a miner outside. That's about it. It's not very exciting at my place.
I thought I heard a miner earlier on, but no, that was something.
That could be. No, that was it.
Something different. So tell me how are magpies doing? I just heard a self-crested cockatoo at your place too, by the way.
Yeah, that's me.
There we are. Yeah.
There we go. There they go. Yeah. Yes. My standard flock that get around causing chaos. Magpies are probably one of the more common species that we get recorded in our bird data surveys, that were recorded in Carly's work as well. I'll have a look at the state by state for Carly's, but I know in our birds in backyard surveys, those and rainbow lorikeets are our number one, number two most common species seen. I think Australian magpies have the advantage that they are found all over Australia. So they can occupy a whole range of different areas. There's very few places that actually don't have Australian magpies. But through our birds in backyard surveys, we've been able to look at what are the features that they really go for in a backyard. And it's pretty obvious, really. They love some tall trees. They love a little bit of open lawn space. That's where they like to pop down and forage for grubs and things. And they do also, we tend to find them more commonly where people have water available for them too.
Very good. Now I've got to where I want to be, so let me. All right. Magpies, Holly. Magpies. This was actually yesterday morning, but I just posted it. I just posted it today. Oh, are we getting? Why aren't we?
I haven't got sound.
No, it's not giving me the sound. That's annoying. Why not? Why aren't you doing that? I might have to.
Is your little indicator thing showing there's no sound playing down the bottom right? I can't see it properly to see if it's got a cross on it or not.
Oh, yes, that's what it is. Thank you, Holly. Okay.
There we go.
Now I've got to get right back to the start.
There.
Now that's that. I need it to restart. So get. I'll reload that page because you missed the best bit.
Okay.
That's the aftermath. So let's go. Here we go.
4.
All right. That's the beginning again.
4.
So that's my Mr. Magpie and one of the adult females. Now I can't tell the two adult females apart. But
Okay.
remember the story. My
Yeah.
my male died, and it looked like another male was there within 2 days, and had brought another adult female with him.
Yep.
So now the wars are starting, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's the start. I haven't seen another blue, but that's the first time I'd seen
Yeah, that's a
the adult male.
territorial. Yeah.
But we have had, and this perplexed me. Tell me if you've seen this before.
Okay.
I've got the male and 2 adult females here with one young magpie remaining.
Yep.
They did start with 3 young, 2 are gone. So I presume they've died.
Okay.
But in recent times, the 4 that we have here have been being joined by 4 or 5
Yep.
other magpies, and they've been like hanging out in the top of the trees. But then the other ones have moved off. But I've been seeing this for about 3 weeks, that frequently the others have been coming in and then moving off, but no sign of a battle.
Okay.
So, and for me, that's unusual. You usually see them chasing each other off and whatnot. Here they seem to be hanging out, exchanging pleasantries, and then the others move away.
Yeah. We're not in breeding season now though. So some birds are sometimes a little bit more relaxed and tolerant outside of that sort of hormone surge and breeding. So that could be what's going on in terms of those sort of neighbours being relatively friendly. I would think by June, maybe the start of July, all bets will be off in terms of those territory boundaries then. But I'm being a little bit more tolerant at the moment's not uncommon with some birds. As for that was a pretty vicious fight. He's obviously taken a dislike. It could be that he wants one female and doesn't want another in the space and is trying to see her off.
Just a few minutes after that, because I was recording all my first seen and heard, so when I was walking back inside, all 4 of them sitting quite happily, just...
good. Whatever it was forgiven and okay.
I can't remember where I posted my cacophony. I think it was on Twitter today. I'll just have a look. the lorikeets, the minute that it went, that we got a bit of misty rain this morning,
Yep.
the lorikeets all started having a
bath.
a bath. Yeah. I just want to find it if I can. Where did I put my cacophony? I'm sure I did my cacophony on Twitter this morning. Yes, here we go. So I will share that. I'll put the. Let's get it back to the start. I've got the right thing clicked, Holly.
Okay.
I've even got it full screen, so I can share that again. So this is what it sounded like. Let me just get that volume up too. And I've got the trees in question. So this is taken from where I usually sit and do my... yeah, so hang on. Have we got that? I got that shared? Yes. Share this tab instead. That would be better. Then we don't have to look at the one we've already done. There we are. There we are. Let's go. There we go. That was just from those two trees.
Wow.
They'd come
That's
from
a
everywhere.
lot of lorikeets.
That was. And as soon as it started,
Yep.
it started to lightly rain. So yeah, that's what I figure they were doing, having a bath.
Yeah.
I did get some unusual shots, but then they won't be good enough to share here. I'll try and doctor them up and share them later on. But a pair of crested pigeons on the power lines, and they were popping up a wing each.
Oh, nice.
As it started raining, just getting
Yeah.
some water and then doing the
Showering
flippy.
a bit.
Yeah, which
Nice.
again I hadn't seen up on a perch. I've
Yeah.
seen them on the ground doing that, but yeah.
Yeah.
It-
Oh, lovely.
You just never ever should stop being surprised by what you see.
No, absolutely not. And that's, that's what I love about urban spaces, is that there is always something to see. And so, I mean, I'm quite guilty sometimes going, oh, bloody rainbow lorikeets. Okay. But taking the opportunity to see them do some, slightly unusual behavior, or, just, enjoying a bit of rain is just lovely.
Yeah, bloody fantastic. Let me just, I've got to toot my own horn a bit here.
Okay.
Now, every morning a couple of people are always joining in with First Seen and Heard. Hashtag First Seen and Heard. Deb, who is down in South Gippsland, joins in every morning, and she takes a shot pretty much. Or actually, she posts a picture that she already has generally of some of the birds she's talking about. So this morning she had the superb fairy wren and first heard little wattlebird. So
that's a nice combo, and that is a beautiful photo.
It is.
Amazing.
So I just want to encourage you to join in. Let's have a look at the thread for First Seen and Heard. So there's Deb. Bronwyn Fredericks joins in from Brisbane. So there we are. She had, what was that one? Noisy Miner and lorikeets. Oh, that?
Okay.
Yeah, there we are. I'll have to let Bronwyn know that that's not the noisy miner. It's the noisy miner.
Yep.
There we go. Was that Deb? I'm guessing that might have been Deb. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Deb from
Look
the
at
other
him.
day.
Beautiful.
Charlie Bingham from the UK. Fantastic.
Nice.
I've been hoping Charlie would join in. So Charlie's in Norfolk in the UK, and in the UK, I think Charlie and someone else were starting First Bird of My Day, and I just messaged Charlie and said, and said, "How about you add my hashtag as well, because it's
Yep.
essentially the same thing." So yeah, there we go.
Beautiful.
She's got the English robin. Actually, let's get the sound up on that one. Can you hear that?
Just, yes.
So you can hear the common blackbird there.
Yeah.
But there's the robin.
Oh, listen to that trill. It's beautiful.
So good on you, Charlie. That one had actually got past me. So let me heart that and retweet it. I try and retweet everyone who joins in on the hashtag. Unfortunately, most of the time, you're going to get this. Let me get it back here. Morning, bird nerds of Twitter. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd, doing something a little bit different this morning for First Seen and Heard on Monday. That is a Holly Monday. Now that was my first seen and my first heard, the Australian magpie. I've got a little treat for Australian magpie too. Catch the live stream Monday with Holly. There we are. We don't need the ad because I've already we've
very
already
meta,
done that.
isn't it?
There we are. Yeah, but yeah. So that's how hard it is to be involved. You have to have as much talent as being able to point your camera at your head, or if you don't want to do that, you just can point it at the noise. And if you have a video, that's great because then people can actually experience
Sure.
the sounds rather than just having a descriptive. So, yes, please do join in on First Seen and Heard. Why I love it is it teaches you to be attentive to what's going on. Mm-hmm. And as I'm doing it every day, I'm noticing the changes that
excellent
that are happening. So let me get rid of that now. What else is happening in Birdlife world, Holly?
Oh, goodness. What isn't happening? There's lots and lots going on, as there always is. We're gearing up in the urban team to do a month-long How to Help Birds in Urban Spaces series for April. So every day we're going to post a new tip to our social media. So at Birds in Backyards on Instagram.
Please tag me in so that I can share.
I will. Holly. I will. Absolutely. And in our Birds in Backyards Facebook group. So we're just working out all the text now. So it's 30 days of bird tips and important facts for conserving urban birds will be coming along. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
I keep thinking that I should get you in to do something like I do with one of the other podcasts I do where we have a top tip. We have a top tip. And I always throw, so Marina, it's time for your top tip. So I can go,
top tip of the day.
So Holly, what's your top tip?
Put a plant in the ground. That's my tip.
I've actually got
something.
I've got one, which has just come to mind after interviewing, excuse me, Michelle Villa again, because that's going to be probably the next episode of the Bird Emergency coming out. Avian influenza.
Oh, interesting.
Wash your bird feeders and your water receptacles.
Yes.
It's far more important than when we've talked about it in times before.
Yeah.
We do not have the nasty strains of avian influenza in Australia yet, or in New Zealand, or in several other nations adjacent. It'd be nice to keep it that way. So,
good one.
So because migrating birds could easily be visiting open space gardens in caravan parks on the shores of northern Australia coastlines.
Yeah,
So keep them clean.
absolutely.
Keep 'em
And I guess the other thing that we've got going on, if people want to, is they can do a birds in backyard survey. Our autumn surveys are open now, so people can watch in their space for 20 minutes, tell us a little bit about their gardens, which then helps us give information, like I talked about before, about what magpies need in a garden. And yeah, it's a nice little fun way to, once every season, keep an eye on what's going on your birds in your garden and letting us know.
And if you're like me and you are a unit dweller and you don't have a garden per se, you can do it in a
You
local
can do it in a
open
park.
space, can't you? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, yes. Now, are they different than doing a normal bird data survey, Holly? Does the data end up
Yes.
in the same place?
It all ends up in the same place. It all gets used. So, for example, if we're doing some work in urban on what's happening in urban birds, we will be looking at all the data. So you can do a general bird data survey if you are out in a patch of bush. And then if you are in your garden or on your balcony or wherever that might be, you can do the birds in backyard survey, which just has that extra bit of info on garden features. So it just gives us a little bit more detail on what's going on in private spaces around Australia.
And the reason that collecting the data and putting it into a repository that is available for people to use is why, Holly?
Because we learn about what's going on and we can't act for birds if we don't know what the situation is. And so, Carly Campbell's paper is an excellent example of how we've been able to understand the big trends in urban birds over 60 years because people send data in and we need to keep that going.
That's right. So qualitative, longitudinal, quantitative data leads to good management decisions
Exactly.
and identification of trends.
That's right.
So you don't need to be a scientist to put stuff into your mobile phone.
Not at all. So the birds in backyards surveys have got a bird list. So if you don't know the names of all your birds, when you click in the little tab, it'll give you a list of the birds that are in your area with a picture to help you out.
And no matter where you live in the world, if you're watching this and you're somewhere else, India, New Zealand, UK, US, I haven't found, Canada, I'm sure just about everywhere that has a bird organisation is doing similar types of surveys. But even if they're not, eBird, iNaturalist, there are so many options for you to put data out there so that people can use it for the benefit of habitats, ecosystems in general, but particular species and the management conservation efforts aimed at those birds and animals. So get involved. That's all we want you to do.
Absolutely.
Holly, I don't know if this was a thing last time we spoke, but I've now got a membership tier on Buy Me a Coffee. I'm just about to launch, probably tomorrow, Patreon, and a new thing called Liberapay, which is like it's a donation platform, but it's
cool.
But it's not Patreon, and you don't have to lock into something continual, and you don't have to use PayPal. So if you're not a fan of those PayPal dudes, there's other ways to do it. So yeah, and I might be trying to raise some money shortly, because if anyone listened to Millie and I having our update chat about wing threats, I might be being Millie's ground crew for Cairns to Darwin. So
exciting.
If that happens, I'll probably need a bit of money for fares or something.
Yeah.
Millie smashed her target for the.
I saw that was so exciting. Fantastic effort.
So that's great. She's got enough money to get all the way around and talk to heaps and heaps more people about shorebirds and the amazing migration journey they undertake. feel free to help out. I can guarantee that any money that is sent to thebirdemergency.com/coffee will be used in the pursuit of furthering the message. And it may well be that I'll actually send those links to a crowdfunding campaign to raise, I don't know, $600-700 to cover fares. So if
Awesome.
you're interested in helping out, let me know through any of the socials. birdemergency.com/live links to everything you need, and all these shows, the ones coming up and the ones that have been, like Ricky Coughlin. Fantastic response, I've got to say, to our Thornbills
Awesome.
one, and bit of a punt sometimes when you think how will how are people going to take it and whatnot.
Yep.
It's good. So yeah, and
That's great.
anything else, Holly, before we wrap up? Geez, we've been going. You've got last chance for questions and comments, gang.
No, just keep following on social media for our April activities. I've said it out loud now, so we've got to do it. And, I'm looking forward to it. Do a survey. That's about it.
Keep the pressure on everyone for stuff to happen.
Exactly.
A slight win with the safety mechanism, safety guarantee mechanism, so that's good. Holly, I did want to ask you. I went to a online seminar last week run by Lighter Footprints, which is a Melbourne group, featuring Dr. Kate Dooley.
Oh.
Do you know about the land gap?
No, tell me more.
Kate and her team out of Melbourne University have analysed all the climate promises, the climate carbon reduction promises, based on vegetation. Right? So based on tree planting and changing to different crops and everything. Now, there is not enough land available in the world to fulfil those pledges. There is simply not enough land suitable for changing the methods of farming and growing vegetation or tree planting. And tree planting for forestry or agroforestry doesn't work because once you cut the tree down, the carbon gets released.
Yes.
In various forms. It's no longer being removed.
Yeah.
So we've all been sold a lie. Landgap.org is where you can read the report for yourself, and I'll be inviting Kate Dooley to come on and explain it, and of course I'll be reinterpreting what she says in a non-scientist way, just to drive the point home. There is no solution there is no solution that enables continual development. It doesn't matter which way you slice it. There is no way to plant enough trees, and unfortunately, most of the NGOs and all the people who are well-intentioned, who are pushing these programs and projects as a method to save us, are unfortunately misguided. It's not possible without absolutely stopping what we are doing now, not by 2050. It's got to happen before 2030 for us to have any chance. So please be an activist, even if it makes you uncomfortable. We have to do it, or else we just have to... those apocalypse movies will not be fantasies. They'll be documentaries, or they'll actually be how-to guides, how to survive in 2036. Anyway, there we are, Holly. Love your work.
I'm going to go and read that report. I've just looked it up. Wow.
Yeah. I'll send you the link to the seminar I went to. It was eye-opening. I had heard about it, but and I think a lot of people have sort of heard about these things, but the situation's far more dire than anyone is letting us understand, because it's scary and nobody
It
wants
is.
to
Yeah.
scare the voters. Don't panic the horses. You know. Anyway, thanks everyone. Thebirdemergency.com/coffee, birdsinbackyards.net, and of course, Holly, what's your Twitter?
At Urban Birds Oz is our Birds in Backyards or Urban Bird Twitter, or at Backyard Birdo is my own personal one.
And of course, if you're following me on Twitter, at Bird Emergency, you'll see me always tagging, sharing, linking everyone I possibly can. What did I say about Carly? Here we go. Carly is at Echo_Carly. And, well, none of you have gone over and followed her since I last mentioned it. Let me just refresh. I may stand corrected. Waiting. No, so, and I might say that, Mon, by the way, Mon, you're forgiven. You'll be watching the replay again, Holly. Mon, it's okay. You can be late. You got things to do.
Absolutely.
Mon, if you want to earn a gold star, please go to Twitter right now, and follow Dr. Carly Campbell at Echo_Carly, Carly with a Y. And if you do that, you will get an elephant stamp. Stan, you too, okay? Although I never see Stan on Twitter. I don't think Stan's twittering these days. Yeah, thebirdemergency.com/coffee, and I will annoy you all with crowdfunding or joining or whatever support or whatever I decide to tag it. The latest episode. Oh, yes. No, I do have some news for you, Holly.
Okay.
But the latest episode has actually been the update with Millie. So if you want to catch up with Millie Formby and Wing Threads, that's the last podcast episode in the feed. But Holly, I got to tell you, and this is also Chris. Hello, Chris on Facebook. He gave me a comment saying, "When are you going to get back to bird stuff, Grant? Because we've been doing issues more than individual birds." And I explained to Chris that, well, since COVID, since the restrictions are gone, we're all back to normal. It's really hard. It's really hard to get any scientists to talk to me because they're all out there doing the stuff that they weren't able to do for 2 years. That's right. So that's reason number one. But if you got a minute, Holly, and I just want to make sure I'm not fibbing about these things. We did talk about them on something the other day, but I kind of want to.
While you're looking, I went out in the field the other day. I haven't been out in the field for a very long time. It was exhausting and wonderful.
Tell us the highlights.
Highlights were that despite pulling about 12 leeches off my shoes, I didn't actually get a leech on me. So that was a highlight for me because I was sure I was coming home to a boot full of blood. Bird-wise, we were out actually looking for powerful owls. Well, we weren't looking for powerful owls. We were doing some nest tree measurements ahead of the breeding season. Didn't see any powerful owls. They weren't roosting close by. So that was a little bit sad, but we saw some really lovely little eastern yellow robins at a couple of sites that were just beautiful and inquisitive, and I haven't seen one for a very long time. So that made me very happy. They were very sweet.
Oh, magnificent. I miss seeing eastern yellow robins.
Yeah.
Now, let me just tell you something. My top 10 episodes of the Bird Emergency since the very beginning of the Bird Emergency. Number 1, bonus Monday with Grant featuring Gregory Andrews. Number 1.
Cool.
What did we do? We talked about issues and shit. Right? Number 2, bonus, Monday with Grant. Achieving degrowth with Martin Ty. We talked about issues and shit. Both released in January of this year. They are my number 1 and 2 all-time episodes.
Excellent.
Number 3 is episode number 34, and we're now well into, well, including bonuses, we've topped 100. Number 34, the Kakapo recovery with Andrew Digby. About 2/3 of the number of Gregory Andrews.
Okay.
And that was released in 2021. Number 4, Bird Strike in Asia and the Evolution of Pitters with David Tan. Released almost 12 months ago. Has about half. So it's number 4, and it has about half of the listeners in a year longer than my episode with Martin Ty. Coming in at number 5, episode 84. So this is how much the show has grown in this short period of time. Is episode 84, and I'm only and this is for people like you, Chris. The ones with numbers are like my bird nerd episodes. Wing Threads Flight Around Australia for Shorebirds update with Millie Formby. So that's about a week. It's number 4. No, number 5. Number 6. One of my favourite people in the absolute world, Catherine Young and the 40 Spotted Pardalote. Episode number 9. Released in September 2020. Now, it has less than half of Gregory Andrews and Martin Ty. So if you're new to the Bird Emergency, go back and listen to that. Then this one then Monday with Holly, the Urban Powerful Hours of Brisbane, and that's
I made a top 10. I'm excited.
So that's only slightly below the Catherine Young, but that one, that one's 18 months old. Would you believe that's how long?
Didn't we do that 2 weeks ago?
No. Sorry, that one was Sorry, it's not 18 months old. It's 6 months old. That's
that was with Nick and Lucy.
Yeah, that was in September of last year.
Yeah.
Then the next one is a real bird nerd one. The Aotearoa, or New Zealand Southern Dotterel. Now, that was released in, June, July, the end of July, the 30th of July, 2022. And that, again, they're all pretty consistent numbers here. But it's still, about a third of the amount of Gregory and Martin Ty. Migratory Birds of the Middle East with Yoav Perlman, which was really talking about that flyway and that convergence in the Middle East, which was released in middle of January 2022. I recorded it a lot earlier than that, but that was when it was released. And then we come down to episode number 1, Dr. Stephanie Burrell, which was released at the start of February in 2020, and it has, less than a third of the 2 most recent episodes that are about issues. So that kind of tells us thing. And then the next one, we're getting into 11 and 12. Soundscapes for Habitat Restoration with Dr. Dave. Now, of course, Dr. Dave's so popular. And then the Red Goshawk with Chris McCall. Now, that tells me 2 things. One, we've reached critical mass with the podcast. It's taken so long to actually get to so many people that new episodes are getting done. So if you're new to the podcast, go back and listen to so many of the great ones from early on with Amanda Lillyman and I don't know, everybody. So that's great. But the other thing is that people want issue stuff because people care. So I'm sorry if you don't like the issue stuff. There's still going to be issue stuff. And Holly, we might intrude some of it into here. That's right. I'm trying to do a bit for everyone, but those numbers, I mean, especially, Martin Ty, well, actually, and they were a week apart. I released Gregory's middle of January, and Martin Ty's was the long weekend in January.
Okay.
So there we go. That's what people are into. Mon, I'm going to check now in a minute to see whether you have followed Carly.
If not, you're going to be called out again.
I'm going to call out everyone. When I called this out, because I've been following Carly for, I don't know, a long time. No, you haven't done it. All right, get to it. I couldn't believe she's only got. Oh, I don't want to say how many followers she's got. I think I said it before. I don't want to call her out, but for crying out loud, a fantastic scientist doing great work.
She is. She's amazing.
And what she got? 10. Not even 10% of the followers I've got, and I'm a bloody goose, right? You know. No. Sorry, it's not echo. Sorry, Mon. It's not echo as in hello. It's echo as in ecologist. ECO _ Carly. So if you take the H out of that, you'll find her. And then I'm going to check your homework, right? I'm going to check your homework now. Oh no, I've missed it again. Got to go back one. Holly, I want to ask you too. What was the first seen and heard at your place today?
Oh, today, my first heard would have been Common Miner.
Yes.
That I heard this morning when I went to feed the dogs breakfast at some ungodly hour. And then I think my first was a Noisy Miner coming into the Banksias in the front of my place.
Fantastic. Mon, good on you. You are a legend. Mon, too, I want to publicly say good on you, Mon. Mon is posting some fantastic photos.
Yeah,
she is. Not only in just on Twitter generally, but in the first seen and heard stuff. So Mon and Deb, gold stars. And Deb's got a problem with her camera, which I'm trying to sort out. So that's good. The only other things I need to tell you now is Good Friday will be the next birdwatching deep dive with Ricky. Have not determined the time yet. We might try and bring the Fridays up a bit earlier than 4 p.m, but probably after lunch. And next Monday, that's going to be me. Monday with me. I can't tell you how much fun that's going to be. I don't know yet. And I can tell you that Monday the 10th will be Monday with me and Bruce Richardson. So we're going to be talking about his big year, his books, his experience, life as, being a muso as well as a birdo. So that should be good. And the 12th. So I know it's a fair way away, but it is not long after Easter. The 12th is the next Dawn Chorus episode. I'm working on a fix so you can upload your files and video files, please, the same way I do first seen and heard. You don't have to put your mug on, but video is far easier for me to share in the stream than audio.
Yeah.
I've got a form where you can put the forms in, but it's not actually working with my Dropbox or my Google Drive at the moment. But hopefully that'll be there. So it'll be easy to do that. Join into First Seen and Heard. # First Seen and Heard. Do Birds in Backyards survey
Yes,
and
please.
your bird data, and no matter where you are in the world, eBird, iNaturalist, all these kind of things that people can get involved with. Or if you're recording bird calls, my favourite, Xeno Canto. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. And we accessed a whole heap of Thornbill calls when we did the last show with Ricky. Also, if you are checking out the podcast with the bird watching deep dives that I do with Ricky, just let me know how it works as a podcast, and when I'm editing it up and treating it, let me know, because if it's not working as a podcast, we might just keep it as YouTube and video only. But I want you guys to tell me. I reckon it works all right, but let me know. Let me know. Thanks, everyone. Bird Emergency Monday with Holly. Probably my favourite Mondays.
Stop
it. Who could ever write a song now called "I Don't Like Mondays" when you've got Monday with Holly to look forward to? Thanks, Riot Squad.
Grant.
I love it when you're all here. Bird Emergency, birdemergency.com/live. Join in. Oh, Mon. Yeah, Mon, you get an elephant stamp too, because I can see that you. Let me do one more. Well, let's drag out the bit as long as we can, Holly. Let's drag it out. Oh, it's only Mon who gets an elephant star. The rest of you are not. You're going in the naughty corner. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. That's Dr. Holly Parsons. She's the manager of the Urban Birds program at Birdlife Australia and Birds in Backyards. See you soon, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.